Our next speaker, Dr. Kalpana Shekhawat, is one of India's leading names in integrative and functional medicine. She combines evidence based nutraceuticals, advanced detox procedures, gut healing, BHRT, peptides, and integrative protocols to create, again, a personalized experience that we have been talking about through functional medicine. Today, she will be presenting fibromyalgia through a functional medicine lens, a powerful recovery story of a 24-year-old patient whose transformation shows what's possible when we treat the whole body and not just the symptoms. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Kalpana Shekhawat. Let me bring her on stage.
Hi,
Hello.
hi, good morning, and
Ve-
thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here, and I want to thank all of you, the organizers, and everyone who's made such great effort. Thank you, Dr. Preeti, Dr. Ashwini, Dr. Ruhi, Dr. Musa. And I've been here for a long time. I think I've been there for every conference that we have, and I really enjoy it. And so I'm very happy to present this case today and talk about fibromyalgia. Autoimmunity, in any case, it's been something which I have been doing and working with a lot of my patients, and it's been a game changer. I do not like to really name any disease, though we are talking about fibromyalgia right now, but we'll obviously be focusing on the root causes as to why it happens, because autoimmunity can impact any vulnerable organ of your body. So the root causes have to be addressed, and then we are able to get a great result. So
So well said there, Dr.
yeah,
Shekhawat. I will be moving away from the stage. The screen is all yours.
thank you, thank you. So this, I'll be sharing a journey of a 24-year-old girl. She came to me very frail, looked looked like literally unable to walk. She entered my clinic, and she was only surviving on chicken and asparagus because she couldn't really tolerate anything else. And she came with multiple aches and pains all over her body. And she was a aspirant UPSC. I mean, she was doing very well in her career, and she was determined that she's going to get into UPSC, but she had to take a break because of the kind of health issues that she had. And she approached us, and we worked with her, and we held her hand, and we've just had a 3 months journey with her, but we see a great difference. So I'd like to present that to you all. So I'll just share my screen, and then we get started. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So yeah, we can move to the next slide. This is, so we all know our body has the innate intelligence, and our job is to remove the obstacles so it can heal itself. I mean, that's the principle that we work on. We only minutely look at what's really going on in the body, which is hampering its self-healing capacity. Because if we do nothing and we just do the right things, we can see our body respond very well. So that's the principle that we work on. And yeah, can you move to the next? So let's just understand. So before I'll talk about this case, clinical case, I'll just briefly explain about what fibromyalgia is. So it's a disorder of central pain regulation where altered nervous system processing leads to widespread musculoskeletal pain, fatigue, sleep disturbances, cognitive impairment, and mood disorders. Central sensitization plays a key role in amplifying the pain signals. Next, please. So we all have, in all practically all autoimmune diseases, we know that we have 20% genetic element, and the 80% which is in our hand is epigenetic. So 80% is driven by epigenetic factors such as environmental triggers, lifestyle patterns, stress physiology, infections, toxins, and other signals that modify gene expression. And this is why fibromyalgia and related conditions often emerge when these epigenetic pressures, they accumulate hugely in our body. And when we work with our patients on removing these epigenetic factors and put them on the right track in terms of their diet, lifestyle, nutritional supplementation, detoxification, and regenerative therapies, we do see a great result. Next, please. So the theory behind most of the times, and it has been time and again scientifically proven that autoimmunity is not a deficiency of any immune modulators that you need to do. You're not really required to suppress your immune system to deal with this condition. You are required to basically balance your immune system. So it is not hyperactivity, but it is hyperreactivity of your immune system which is causing this. So molecular mimicry occurs when proteins from infections, gut microbes, or foods closely resemble body's own tissues. So this misrecognition leads the immune system while targeting these invaders mistakenly react against nerves, muscles, and pain pathways. So in fibromyalgia, the immune confusion can trigger non-neuroimmune activation, sensitize pain pathways, and increase inflammation and microglial activation. Next. And the root causes or triggers could be, it could come from a physical trauma, emotional trauma, where there could be chronic stress, then infections, hormone imbalances, gut dysbiosis, food sensitivities, IBS, mitochondrial dysfunction, and chronic inflammation and metabolic stress. Next. So the chronic latent infections, I cannot do justice because there are so many of them. There's a huge list. Like my current patient also had multiple chronic latent infections, which she didn't realize when she stayed abroad and she stayed alone for the longest period of time. And we know how kids, they're not able to have proper diet. So they'll end up getting lots of infections, and they like to keep their pets along. So most of the times we have observed that, people who have pets, and if the hygiene is not maintained, and if they do not do a proper parasite cleans regularly, they can land in trouble. So some of the infections which can get overwhelming in your body: Epstein-Barr virus, this herpes virus, CMV, mycoplasma, Borrelia, Chlamydia pneumoniae, Streptococcus, Enterococcus, and Giardia. I've seen with mycoplasma, which is one of the rarest infections. And I saw my son suffer this infection where we couldn't really diagnose this infection. And he had a severe lung autoimmune reaction because of this infection. And yes, so identifying these underlying infections and then treating them before you reach a level where it is something that you need to be on steroids, or you need to be in the emergency for this, would be a good idea to just understand these infections, keep screening yourself in time, and know what's going on in your system, especially in the gut. Next, please. So the systemic symptoms which we have seen in these patients are IBS, gastroesophageal reflux disease, abdominal discomfort, headaches, tension, migraines, cluster headaches, Raynaud's orthostatic intolerance, palpitations, temporomandibular joint dysfunction, pelvic pain and bladder discomfort, sensory hypersensitivities, mood disorders like anxiety, depression, PTSD. So these have been found associated with the autoimmune conditions. Next, please. So significant impact, it causes significant impact in your daily functioning and quality of life. A leading cause of chronic widespread pain in women, mostly. It does affect a lot of men also, but the ratio is, women are impacted more as compared to men, primarily because I think their immune system gets weak because of excessive stress that women go through as compared to men. I may sound a little women-centric here, but that's what happens most of the time. So often misdiagnosed as or underdiagnosed this condition is, and high healthcare utilization without symptom relief when the root causes are missed is what the clinical significance of this is. Next, please. Next slide. Yeah. So the pathophysiology, I'll just give you a brief background that there is a central sensitization which has been seen in these patients. Fibromyalgia is a disorder where normal sensory input is misperceived as pain due to central nervous system amplification. Pain pathways, they become overtly responsive, and natural pain inhibition weakens, influenced by dysregulated stress system, leading to heightened pain perception and ongoing symptoms, which do not get relieved until you take heavy dose of painkillers. Next, please. We see in brain imaging changes are seen like pain processing areas, including reduced gray matter and altered connectivity. Neurotransmitter imbalances are very common in these patients, and we do a complete neuro advanced profile in many of these patients who can afford it. It is an expensive test, but it gives us a lot of insight into the kind of imbalances are there. We really don't need to give them any medications for this. Most of the times, the deficiencies of the amino acids which develop because of the gut issues can cause these neurotransmitter imbalances. So like low GABA or dopamine alongside high glutamate, they all increase pain signals. And if we balance these out, we get good results. Impaired pain inhibition and abnormal insular cortex function also contribute to chronic widespread pain. Next, please. Very important organ which is involved. So because this also impacts your stress and your overactivity of sympathetic system and underactivity of parasympathetic system is again another important contributor to the heightened pain response that we see, because we have high level of cortisols, epinephrines, norepinephrines in our body most of the times, and they impact our sleep, and they cause more anxiety, palpitations, gastrointestinal issues, because of the we've already heard of this term called adrenal fatigue, which happens in people who have been chronically stressed due to multiple reasons for the longest period of times. So they are at high risk of developing this condition. Next, please. Sleep architecture in fibromyalgia is significantly disrupted, with deep sleep often interrupted by alpha wave intrusions, resulting in unrefreshing rest. And delta sleep inducing peptide has been a big boon in this case. I have been using it for some of my patients, and it has given great results because we've seen improvements in their REM sleep and deep sleep, which is very critical, because most of the times if you actually check your sleep score, and in patients who had high cortisol the entire day, they hardly find it difficult to get enough deep sleep or REM sleep. So non-restorative sleep strongly predicts pain severity, and disturbances may precede the onset of chronic pain, indicating a possible causal relationship. Next, please. Very important topic in this, which I'd like to touch upon, is methylation and COMT defect. I've seen, I mean, I do try to test most of my patients for these. And if they're not methylating well, then clearly they are accumulating a lot of toxins. Their liver is heavily loaded, and supporting methylation and supporting their COMT pathways has really gone a long way in helping. So impaired methylation and slow COMT activity can lead to fibromyalgia by allowing stress neurotransmitters and estrogen metabolites to accumulate in the nervous system, and which is why this condition is more common in women, because it impacts the estrogen pathways. This keeps the body stuck in a chronic fight or flight state, amplifies pain signaling, central sensitization, increases neuroinflammation, and weakens pain inhibition, which results in excessive pain all over the body in various muscles, and it keeps switching from one place to another. Next, please. So the basic clinical features are widespread pain for more than 3 months, fatigue that worsens with exertion, non-restorative sleep, cognitive dysfunction, heightened pain response to minor stimuli, multiple somatic symptoms, GI, urinary, headaches, paresthesias. They're all observed in fibromyalgia. Next, please. So how layered triggers lead to fibromyalgia? Let's understand through this clinical case. So I'll talk about this 24-year-old girl. I briefly described you. She was a very frail girl, and she was very ambitious, so always stressed out, had a lot of peer pressure, and she was to appear for her UPSC exams. And because of this extreme stress that she underwent, and then she traveled abroad, she could not get the kind of food that she would have got when she was at home, and the kind of support. So because of all that, she underwent this extreme debilitating condition where she had gut issues. Then she had fibromyalgia. She was not able to digest Now, any healthy food as well, no grains. She'd gone completely off grain by doing reading on internet and googling and finding out what will work for her and all, because she couldn't find the right practitioner. We did her testing, and I'm going to talk about her detailed investigation result going forward. So she had persistent ankle and joint pain with swelling, chronic low back and hip stiffness. It was worse in the morning, better with movement, recurrent heel pain, low energy and fatigue, digestive issues, and low appetite, disturbed sleep, and high stress, brain fog, poor memory, and difficulty. I cannot read and know what we have written, but
Concentrating.
yeah.
Concentrating.
So we can move to the next slide. So so what we did was complete blood screening. We always make sure that we are heavy on investigations, because I'd really want to, many of my patients, they insist that no, we don't want to do so many investigations, but I always tell them that if you do not support me with what I need, I wouldn't be able to support you. So I do go heavy on investigation to really identify the root causes and pinpoint, what really needs addressing. So we do complete blood screening. It requires it has a lot of parameters, which tell us a lot about inflammation. There are certain tests which we do from our domestic labs, which is EBV, Lyme, and Candida, in addition to what we do from the international laboratory, which is specialized in functional medicine. So the comprehensive stool test, food intolerance test. What I could not do for her was neuro advanced profile and the MTHFR. No, we did MTHF and COMT defect as well. But yeah, we could not do neuro advanced profile for her because of the cost constraints. Next, please. What we saw basically broadly in her reports was we could see significantly elevated homocysteine at 22.90, which clearly shows that she has methylation defect and probably COMT defect as well. And she had raised CRP 9.9 as against should be less than 5. She was positive for HLA-B27, which was first time tested by us because we suspected, and high levels of heavy metals like aluminum, silver, cadmium, mercury, lead were found in her. And there were notable imbalances in gut microbiome, which I'm going to talk about. Next, please. We'll just briefly see the association between HLA-B27 genetic predisposition and fibromyalgia. So the patient is positive for HLA-B27, which is a genetic marker that confers increased susceptibility to immune activation and chronic inflammations. And carriers of this allele are more reactive to environmental triggers such as infections, stress, toxins, and gut disturbances, which can perpetuate ongoing immune system. Next, please. So HLA-B27 positivity can influence fibromyalgia by adding an underlying layer of immune activation and low-grade inflammation. Because HLA-B27 is strongly associated with ankylosing spondylitis and related inflammatory disorders, it can predispose the patient to chronic spinal and joint inflammations too. Next, please. The ongoing inflammatory burden can worsen musculoskeletal pain, stiffness, increasing the nervous system's tendency towards central sensitization. As pain pathways, they become more reactive. Symptoms such as widespread pain, fatigue, poor sleep, and frequent flare-ups become more pronounced in this way. So this inflammatory activity can... let's move on to the next, please. Okay, so imbalanced microbiome fuels chronic pain, and it's very evident here with her stool report that I'm going to talk about. An imbalanced gut microbiome disrupts the gut barrier, triggering immune activation and letting inflammatory metabolites enter the circulation. This elevates IgE, CRP, and cytokines, affecting the gut-brain immune axis and causing pain, fatigue, brain fog, and central sensitization. So next, please. Next slide. Yeah, so we have this patient's stool report. When we can see on the first page, we only have the picture of first page, but I have the report with me to discuss. So E. coli was one of the dysbiotic bacteria. I'm sure with dysbiotic bacteria, when they stay for a long period of time in the gut, they can form biofilms, and it's not easy to really get rid of them. So we have to work long term to get rid of these biofilms. There were certain commensals which were found, which obviously turn dysbiotic anytime when the lifestyle is not right, when you have too much stress, or you're eating too many sugar, grains, having late nights, taking alcohol, and stressed out and not able to get the right sleep. So E. coli is found positive in this patient. Then Shiga-like toxin producing E. coli was also positive. Shigella was positive. And we saw blastocystis species, which is protozoal infection, which was high positive in this patient. And I basically, can you turn to the next page? Next slide, yeah. So it also, the stool analysis also has shown a high level of inflammatory markers where we see calprotectin was increased where it should be less than 80. It was 367 for this patient. Lactoferrin was 17.8, should be less than 7.3. And her lysozyme was 896 as against less than 500. So I could clearly see there's huge inflammation in the gut, which is going on because of the bugs that she has and the kind of lifestyle she's on. So I did have to clean up the lumen, though I couldn't really do much with the biofilm immediately because that's a long process. And to clean up the gut, I did give her a course of antiprotozoal, which is metronidazole, for 7 days. And I did give her augmentin to take care of the infections because they were found to be sensitive to amoxicillin. And so I gave her a course of augmentin for 7 days, and I did a parasite cleanse, a deep one for 7 days with the help of ivermectin and albendazole, a combination which is called Bandy Plus, which is easily available. So I did this, so that really helped initially. And then alongside, we gave her a whole lot of nutraceutical support. Can you move to the next slide, please? We can see here the heavy metals that we saw, and cadmium is at a very high level. She was also a smoker, and she was also doing weed with her friends time and again. So obviously, I think she accumulated a lot of heavy metals, more because her liver was unable to detox the way it should. So these metals cause oxidative stress, impair mitochondrial function, and disrupt neural signaling, leading to neuroinflammation and central sensitization, which exacerbates fibromyalgia symptoms like pain, fatigue, etc. Next, please. And the mineral imbalances, of course, when even if we try to correct these imbalances until we actually start working on healing the gut and removing the infections, the latent infections which are there, there is not going to be good absorption. So we started supporting her by giving her these mineral tablets to make sure that she has a higher concentration of these for better absorption. Next, please. Next, please. So we did modify her dietary guidelines, and she was very scared to eat any food because she said that I get flare-ups the moment I eat any food apart from asparagus and chicken, which is what she was getting where she was living, and she just stuck to those. So we did introduce a few of the healthy fruits and certain other vegetables for her under support of our treatment protocol, and so that she starts gaining health. But we did keep her gluten-free because somehow I universally believe, because wheat has 300 different proteins, and it's practically not possible to test us for all of those all. So I always feel it's better that especially if the condition is so bad, I would like to keep them off gluten. We made her sugar-free. Anyway, she was sugar-free, she was gluten-free. She was occasionally with friends having some dairy, which I told her to completely avoid. And we put her on a low glycemic nutrition for gut healing. But we did add the foods which were required by her, which she was not taking. So lifestyle intervention also included enhanced sleep. I put her on melatonin at bedtime and a small dose of CBD if she could tolerate. Initially, she could tolerate it very well. Later, she started feeling a little drowsy during the daytime as well. So we had to withdraw that. And of course, I put her on Delta sleep inducing peptide to improve and enhance her sleep. Next, please. Gut restoration we did with a lot of nutraceuticals and herbs. For candida and parasite cleans, we added mimosa pudica extract, grapefruit seed extract, neem extract, uva ursi, garlic extract, etc. Next, please. We did the targeted nutraceutical. I did give her certain amino acids, also, of course, omega-3 and magnesium, and all of this all goes as part of our protocol. We do give always D3K2. I did put her on estrogen detox as well to support her estrogen pathways. I gave her a high dose of probiotic 50 billion. I put her on digestive enzymes to support the end products of metabolism, and the digestive debris should come out from her system. I gave her MTHF, zinc, put her on iron, gave her stress B complex, which basically is a combination of a whole lot of B complex vitamins. I gave her biocidin also for a certain period of time. Gave her alpha GPC, pyridoxal 5-phosphate. Also gave her DMSA and EDTA suppositories to start gentle chelation. Now, she was not really up to doing too much of IV therapies because she was very fragile and we could not find her vein too often. So we really had to, our best bet was the dietary correction and the nutraceuticals. And now she's going to be in the next phase where she's more responsive to take further therapies like more peptides and all of that all. We did oral detox to support and restore her methylation pathways, and we did probiotic enemas also for her, which really helped her. Please move to the next slide. IV detox therapies, though very few, but yes, we could give her intravenous detoxes with modified Myers. And we did coenzyme Q10 injections also for her to support her mitochondrial health. We did molecular hydrogen therapy to again boost her oxidative stress, to remove her oxidative stress and improve her cellular performance. Now, we worked with her on liver cleans, biofilm boosting enemas, probiotic enemas, and so on. Next, please. So we saw a remarkable progress in her in 3 months. She looked very optimistic. She started feeling better. She had more enthusiasm. And she said, and she committed to her parents that now she's feeling better and she'll appear for exams as soon as she's able to enroll now. The mental clarity returned. She had reached a level where her doctor had advised her to start taking lignocaine IV therapies, which she even did once or twice, but of course it didn't work for her, and she was on multiple painkillers before she came to us. So we were able to withdraw all of them by the end of this 3 months. We obviously did not withdraw everything together. We introduced our therapies and we told her to continue with her painkillers until she starts feeling better, and we have a gradual withdrawal of those painkillers. Her mental clarity returned. Her digestive issues have really eased out despite introducing so many healthier foodstuffs, which she was scared to introduce. Her joint pains have gone better. She had a lot of swelling in her ankle joint, which started reducing substantially. She started increasing physical activity in her life, and her energy levels have also improved, making her daily functioning smoother. Next, please. So now the journey continues. She continues to experience some issues which she has come up with, like hair fall and minor skin concerns. She's having breakouts, which I know is there when we do a lot of detoxification. Sometimes toxins, they try to come out from every path that they have, and skin is also one of those. So we are addressing this as part of her healing journey. She has begun her second treatment cycle, which includes peptide therapy. And now I'll be happily able to give her BPC 157 and TB 500. And I am really looking for good results. And I also want to add thymosin alpha for her infections and KPV as well in the next cycle. And I'm really hopeful that we see a great result with her and she completely recovers and she starts feeling better. Next, please. Yeah, so that's about it. And I'm happy to answer if there are any questions related to what I presented. Anything else?
Sure. That was a fantastic presentation again, showing the kind of change you have brought in her life is amazing, Dr. Kalpana. Really hats off to you. Let's get into some questions. Molecular hydrogen therapy, how much ppm and how many days? Can we use readily available dispensable hydrogen tablets?
Well, no. We are doing, I am only aware of what I'm doing, which is a inhalation molecular hydrogen therapy that we are giving to our patients. We give a session of 1 hour twice in a week, and we see a great result. The energy levels, the mitochondrial health, which improves. So we have this equipment, so I'm not sure of what ppm it is giving, but it is one of the very sought after and a high end equipment which has a very controlled level of hydrogen, because we know hydrogen is the smallest molecule and it has the capacity to deeply penetrate into your cells and heal them from there. We just have to use one there's a specialized water which is used by this in this equipment, and the molecular hydrogen starts coming, and then we give just through inhalation. So while our patient is doing modified Myers or any kind of IV therapy, we just put that along, and it gives a double benefit to our patient. And so that's how we work on this.
Great, Dr. Kalpana. There are a couple of questions in the Q&A panel. I request you to stay back and answer those questions.
I'll
Thank you
do.
so much. An incredible case, and we have learned a fantastic thing there.